Full house.
Good evening. Welcome to the regular Select Board meeting for Monday, April 14th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, let's go to open forum. Anyone here for open forum this evening? Good, thank you. We will close open forum. Madam Clerk, let's go right into a public hearing.
Yes, notice is hereby given that pursuant to the requirements of Mass General.
When you open forum, that means somebody just come up here and have some comments?
Yeah.
Okay, I do.
If you want to just have a seat here and just state your name and address.
Kenneth McLeod, 35 Stone Meadow Drive, East Bridgewater. First, I have a question. I was going to make a proposal for the Christmas lights. Don't understand why for years, well, we haven't had lights and all the Christmas trees on the common, and I thought it was something that I was going to set up a proposal, but who would I address that? Who would I talk to about that?
So there's a Christmas.
Kiwanis.
Yeah, the Kiwanis usually runs all the festivities on the common every year.
Yeah, but who pays for the lights? We do.
Kiwanis.
I would assume the town.
Kiwanis buys all the lights and does all
Oh,
of
they
that.
do? The town's not involved in that
No.
expenditure?
Not at all.
Other than, I suppose, the cost of the electricity of having them on, but no, not.
Okay. The other issue.
I can give you the president's name and all that after the meeting. I'll have Rebecca get that to you if you want.
Through the years, I was good friends with the former town manager, and I learned a lot of what was going on behind the scenes that most of the people in the town don't know about. But my issue has been the school committee. I hate to use these two words. I'll use this one word in regards to it. The school committee was the biggest offender in this town as to why the taxes have gone up as much as they have over the years.
Okay, first of all, sir, as a board, okay, the school committees are elected officials for the town of East Bridgewater. So if you have any concerns about that committee, you should be talking to the school committee.
The one thing I will mention is that two of the people that are on the finance committee live on my street. And I found out that the school committee dropped a bomb in their lap a couple of months ago without any prior warning. They were looking to build a new elementary school. And my observation through the years is I have never heard the finance committee or the selectmen ever say no to anything the school department wanted. And I think that's part of the reason why our taxes have gone up as high as they are over the years. On the South Shore, based on real estate values of our town, when you go to sell a home, our taxes in regards to that are one of the highest on the South Shore. So I just want the selectmen and the finance committee to all consider this when they're dealing with the school committee in terms of any increases that they want to do, any money they want to make, because for years they overspent the school department budget every year. And one time when I was up at the annual meeting, I pointed out to all the people in the audience and everybody else that it's against the law in the state of Massachusetts to overspend the school budget. But they did it year after year after year. And the only example I can give to you is the town of Whitman. The state took it over back 35 years ago, somewhere in that area, 35 to 40 years, they took it because a formal complaint was made. Now, I know a letter of concern was sent by either the town manager or the selectman. A letter of concern was sent a number of years back in regards to what the school department was doing. The school department makes up about 70% of the budget in this town. And I think if they had it their way, they'd have the entire budget, and they'd want to
Okay,
spend
so
it.
we're not here to discuss the school
Oh, I
committee
know.
budget.
I just,
We
what it is, I
understand where you're
basically wanted
coming
you
from,
to
sir.
understand where I'm coming from.
But bring it, they are also televised every meeting, bring it to the school committee with your thoughts on that.
They have a public comment period, just like we do, and I think they're meeting tomorrow.
Yes.
Tomorrow in here?
No, they meet at the library at the junior, senior high school.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay. Thank you for taking the
Okay.
time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being
Have
concerned.
a good meeting.
Let's move into our public hearing.
Yes, sir.
Madam Clerk.
Notice is hereby given that pursuant to the requirements of Mass General Law, Chapter 138, a public hearing will be held relative to application for new license restaurant on premises annual all alcoholic beverages Nanda's Restaurant Corp., Fernando P. De Oliveira, manager, premises 225 Bedford Street. Public hearing will be held at the Town Hall, first floor conference room, 175 Central Street, East Bridgewater, on Monday, April 14th, 2025, at 6:00 PM.
Thank you. Representative Hernandez, please approach. Just pull a chair up and join us. Okay, afternoon, good evening. Welcome back again. Okay, let's tell the people what you're looking for here tonight.
We're looking for a liquor license to be able to serve mimosas, Bloody Marys, beer possibly, and wines. Yeah.
Okay, is that the only thing you're looking for here tonight, is just the alcohol
Não,
portion?
tem outro que é pra gente conseguir ficar aberto até as 10 e fazer private party.
And to be able to be open till 10 p.m. and do private parties as well at the restaurant.
Okay.
So they're looking for an entertainment license as well as a on-premise all alcohol beverage license.
They don't have an alcohol? I thought,
No, not
What
what,
it was, Kenny O'Brien's before they had a
Right.
liquor license, but it was closed, so
They
that
had-
license
they had to
expired.
apply
So now
for
they
their
have
own.
one.
right.
I got you.
And was there an entertainment license there before as well?
I'm not sure,
believe
did they
they
have
have-
one?
yeah,
They might have had like jukebox or something like
Okay.
that.
Okay. Carol?
No, I'm good. Is all the paperwork? Is it in
Yeah, it's
order?
all in order.
Yep.
That went through that.
And then
Awful lot of
specific
paperwork.
questions. It is, it's always so much.
I don't know if there's any members of the public that
Yeah,
are here for that, or?
yep,
You have a butter, yeah?
yep, go ahead. You have any questions?
No, we'll just hear from what the butter, I guess.
Okay. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this? Okay.
been a butter, Evelyn Fowler, 15 everything. I'm just wondering, it was breakfast and lunch. I don't imagine people will go in for a drink at breakfast, but you never know. What are the hours going to be? I assume you'll be serving dinner now too?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, we don't know yet.
Okay.
We're gonna see how things going. We just want to have the space available. If you wanna have like your Christmas party, we can do this. But we don't know if we're gonna open for dinner, because we have another place, so it will be a lot of job.
Okay.
We're not sure yet.
Okay, but if we issue the alcohol and the entertainment license, the facility would be set up and available for that when you move down the road and decide to.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, Peter?
Excuse me, how late do they propose to stay open?
She said 10 o'clock,
10 o'clock.
10 p.m.
10 o'clock.
10?
Yep.
And is there security of any kind, or?
Not at this time. I had a talk with the police chief today. At this time, he didn't see that was necessary, but again, that would be watched once they start and see if that would be necessary later on.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Peter?
No, I'm fine.
No, I've read everything. Everything's been signed off by all the people. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's go into action item 1, Madam Clerk.
Make a motion to approve the restaurant on premises all alcoholic beverages application and entertainment license for Nanda's Restaurant Corp., Fernando P. De Oliveira, manager, premises 225 Bedford Street.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
All right. And we'll go right into our first appointment. We can hold off on an appointment to 6:15.
Which one do you want to do?
Well, we have to wait for an appointment for 6:15, correct?
Right, the 6:15, yeah.
Okay. And we should probably skip actually
Maybe number 3?
1 as well. So we could do the minutes if you want.
Yeah.
I make a
Action
motion
3.
to approve the amended minutes of the March 10th, 2025 Select Boards meeting.
Second.
Any discussion?
All those in favor?
Aye. I make a motion to approve the minutes of the March 24th, 2025 Select Board meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Do you want to do the licenses too?
Yeah, we can go in as printed.
What's that?
We can go into them as printed.
Yes. I make a motion to approve the renewal of the following April licenses as printed in the agenda.
For secondhand articles.
Secondhand.
Secondhand article licenses, junk dealer licenses,
That's it.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. I make a motion to approve the applications for one-day liquor licenses from the Villa at Ritter Country Club for weddings on the dates as printed.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. I make a motion to accept the resignation of Anthony Benini from the Finance Committee effective March 24th, 2025.
Second.
Any discussion? Thank Anthony for his participation with the Finance Committee, and if work situation changes, maybe he'll be back. All those in favor?
Aye. I make a motion to accept the resignation of Deborah Chassie from the Patriotic Activities Committee effective April 7th, 2025.
Second.
Any discussion? Again, thanks Deborah for all your help in the Patriots Activity Commission, wishing you well. All those in favor?
Aye. I make a motion to approve the request from Dina Lapine of East Bridgewater Community Gardens for the use of Sachem Rock Farm on April 26, 2025. Rain date April 27, 2025, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. for the community garden opening workday. Plot holders will clean up beds and prepare plots for spring planting.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Make a motion to approve the request from Ryan McGonigal, Director of Information Technology, to surplus the items as printed from the Council on Aging, as the equipment is no longer functional due to age and/or damage.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. I assume you want to skip the last one for now.
Yeah, for now.
Okay. Are you here for open forum? No. Katie? She's not on the agenda.
Yep.
Open forum, we'll go back and reopen open forum. And we'll hear from our town clerk about something important.
Same thing that I keep coming back for. So we had a follow-up conversation about the location of the annual town election. I was able to get a little bit more information, and not for this annual town election, because we're past all the due dates. But going forward, we should be able to add to our census, which we do every year anyway, a little piece of paper that will count as a notification to voters that we're changing the polling location, which would save us the money that was going to end up costing, which was about $6,000. And I know that we'd heard from a few residents.
I had a couple of phone calls.
Yeah, about concerns, again, still regarding parking, and just the ongoing issue with that location. So we wanted to come back. I wanted to come back in front of you guys and give you the new updated information to see if that changed anything for you regarding.
The idea being that starting in 2026, we'll move the town election to the middle school.
Right.
With that notification to the census will be sufficient. Obviously, we would do, use electronic sign, we'd use all our other venues for getting information out, maybe like a month in advance of the May election in 2026 to tell people, hey, it's there, not here.
Okay.
Yeah. My concern with it, as I said when we talked about it before, was the expense. But with the expense off the table, and like I said, I did get a couple of phone calls from people, asking. They said I was the swing vote. But then I went to Katie, and it was already too late for us to change it tonight. But it wouldn't be the time to get the postcards out to people within the 30-day window that they'd have to be notified.
Okay. Like I said, I reluctantly agreed to it the first time, based on the fact that now it's not going to cost anything for us to do it, then we can go ahead and...
Do you want a motion for
Yeah, we'll
going
have
forward
to.
for next year? I make a motion that starting in 2026, that the annual town election be held at the Mitchell Middle School.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And this will not change the state elections.
Right.
The
Correct.
primary in September, the general election in November, presidential primary in February. I've already, I did email Gina Williams and Bill Silver to talk about trying to make sure that as we get into 2026, before the school sets their schedule for the 2026-2027 school year, that we can get the primary date set by the state by then, that they could, just as they do for the November election, have a professional day or something else on the date of the primary, so we don't have a problem with parking for the state primary there.
Okay.
You'll have to weather the storm one more year.
Just one more year. Yep.
All right.
Nope,
Thanks,
thank you,
Katie.
guys.
Thank you.
Okay, we now have a 6:15 appointment. I think we have our state champion Viking cheerleaders in the audience. If you ladies would join us, along with Coach Mr. Montero.
Want me to read it, or are you
Yeah,
gonna?
you can read it. You can-
It's your last time. You sure?
I'll read it.
Boys just got a no-hitter.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Sorry to dress up for the occasion.
I think you're dressed
Thank you.
appropriately for the occasion.
So tell us about this team, Matt.
So we got, what, 6th place in the fall, right? So we chaired 2 seasons, football and basketball. And we got 6th place in the fall, and yeah, we were looking to change divisions to get a boy to chair. And we got Aiden, so our savior came and he learned cheerleading for the first time ever in December. He picked it up really quick. And then, it changed the whole dynamic of the team, to change our division. And it didn't make it easier. It was still a really hard competition. But it's like a different team when you have a boy in the team. Everything's harder, the pyramid's harder this time. And they all stepped up and we ended up winning. So it was a good turnaround.
How many years have you been doing this now?
So I had a little small break, but since 2009. I had a small break during COVID, but yeah, here I am, still here.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen.
It's awesome.
And thank you, Amy, for stepping up. Certificate of commendation on behalf of the citizens of East Bridgewater. The Select Board extends their sincere congratulations East Bridgewater Junior Senior High School cheerleaders as they celebrate their 10th victorious Division III state title. It is by the dedication and hard work of each of its cheerleaders and coaches that has made this successful. We offer our warmest wishes for your continued success for many years to come on this 14th day of April 2025, signed by the Select Board. Congratulations again.
Good job, Ellen. Yep.
Appreciate it.
Go right down the line.
To see you. Congratulations.
Coach, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Good job.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Nice job.
Thanks for coming in. Thanks for coming in.
Good job.
Nice shirt.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
All right. You want to stay?
Right.
This could be your future.
I need more women on the board.
Kid.
Why do we do some licenses in April and some in January?
They were out on a call, so if they could come in after the engineer discussion.
10 o'clock?
Yeah, these are issued by the town clerk's office. So that's why it falls on a different schedule.
Oh, thank you.
Um,
What do you want to do?
I don't know if everybody's here for the town engineer discussion, though.
But I think, no, I don't think everybody's here for the engineering discussion, no?
Well, if you need me to spend some more time, I can do a couple of things with the board.
All right, why don't you
It's
do that?
permitted. Yeah. So, under the 48 hours where if the board did not know of something that was going to be occurring, I'm asking the board to take two actions tonight. One is to sign the employment agreement with our new fire chief, and the other is we also have a memorandum of understanding or agreement between the town and the patrol officer, the East Bridgewater Police Association, that's ready to go.
Okay, great. When will John be starting?
John, we're going to try aim for May 5th.
Okay,
And the board is meeting that night, so my hope is that we could possibly meet a little early, it's 5:30 or 5:45 for having the official swearing in. I know he'll be the fire chief that day, but we'll have the swearing in that night.
okay,
Family and all that, yeah.
okay.
Okay.
So if somebody wants to make a
We'll
motion.
do that. I make a motion to approve the employment agreement between the town of East Bridgewater, Massachusetts, and John E. DiZallo, Fire Chief, effective today, even though he's
Well,
not
it'll be
starting, or
effective May 5th, yeah.
Effective May 5th, 2025.
Is there anything we should know that's different about the contract?
No, the change, it's very much closer to the contracts we have with the other department heads, which we have contracts for. Fire Chief Aaron's contract sort of predated this sort of addition of the professional contracts that we have, for instance, with John Haynes as an example, so that John Clifford worked to modernize it, bring it up to date to be similar to the other contracts. But in terms of benefits and such, it's very much similar.
Okay,
And is it a 3-year? Is there an?
So it's a 2-year, 2-month.
Okay.
What I wanted to
To
do,
bring it in line.
bring it in line to June 30th, 2027. That way, we don't have a salary change in the middle of the year. We don't have to negotiate a contract in the middle of the year or something like that.
okay, any discussion?
No, went through it all.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then you want
And
the,
then the other is the memorandum of agreement with the patrol officers. We've been doing the negotiations with the patrol officers for several years. I think both parties worked very hard to reach an agreement. Obviously, we had entered the land of the Joint Labor Management Commission, which, it's a point where if you haven't reached an agreement, then you go there, but many times the parties involved will, on their own, reach an agreement, sometimes with the help of the staff there at the JLMC. So we didn't end up going to arbitration, which I think is a good thing. I'd rather have an agreement that both parties are relatively satisfied with via this method rather than ending up with the JLMC. We'll sign tonight, and the patrol officers have already signed it. Then it will be brought, the necessary appropriation will be brought to the special and annual town meetings in May. And it'll be retroactive, and they'll be able to get their pay at that point.
Okay, discussion?
I
Did you motion?
didn't make a motion yet.
Okay, could you?
Yes, can I see it? I can read the official.
I noticed that our signature block's not on this agreement, just yours.
Well, you're going to give me permission.
Okay,
I'm not sure why it was set up that way. It was my doing.
I make a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement by and between the town of East Bridgewater and the East Bridgewater Police Association.
Second.
And authorize
Pass
the
on the
town
authorization.
And
administrator.
authorize the town administrator to sign on behalf of the select board.
any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
We did 9 and 10 already then?
We didn't do 11.
Which we wanted to hold off to,
Okay.
maybe a little bit. There's really not much of a discussion on 11. What the presentation for number 11 simply is that, as the board is aware, we're under major financial and fiscal constraints for fiscal -- but we need to set a wage schedule for non-union employees. These may be folks who are, by definition, non-union, but some of the regular staff, some department heads, and set wages and salaries for them and the wage grid for those people who have a wage grid. The proposal is for no change from fiscal '25 to fiscal '26, so no across-the-board increase. Obviously, the board can go back at a later date if we end up being slightly in better financial shape than we're expecting right now, and revise that accordingly. But at this point, we're going to be drawing down reserves during the next 6 years. We're trying to balance the budget for this coming year with as little increase in the budget as possible. And so I'm recommending to the board a fiscal '26 non-union grid and wage schedule without a change from fiscal '25.
You ready? I make a motion to approve the non-union wage grid and pay salary schedule for FY '26 with no changes from FY '25.
Second.
Reluctantly.
Any discussions? Yeah, it's all reluctantly, but necessary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Announcements?
Who's missing?
Everyone's here.
Everyone's here, okay. So conceptually, the idea is, we've had discussions among various departments and department heads during the last few weeks, maybe last month or so, about the possibility of the town establishing a town engineer position. Given that that would be a significant change in the structure of the town government, I thought it best to invite all the interested parties to meet with the select board. The select board is possibly a little bit up to speed. I think some of them have talked to various town employees and department heads during this time, but have everybody in the room for that discussion. Part of that is obviously the responsibilities for the town engineer, which may overlap with some of the duties that our Board of Health agents have done in the past. And so we have representatives from the Mass Association of Health Boards here also to discuss what legally the Board of Health agent and the Board of Health have under their jurisdiction, whether, for instance, even if we have a town engineer, that person could overlap with the duties of the agent, or for instance, the Board of Health here could say, fine, we're delegating these particular functions of the agent to the town engineer, but with our permission to do that. So I know many of you are here for that, so I don't know where you'd want to start the conversation.
Before we get started on the conversation, we get into the 6:30 appointment, since
We can,
I think everyone's here for that.
we can do it whatever order the
Rather
board
than,
feels.
yeah,
I mean, I suspect given the shortness of the warrant, it shouldn't take that long.
right. Oh, we have to wait 3 minutes. Could you give us 3 minutes of something?
We're going to clear the room, that's what you're going to get.
Announcements?
And town council's not here, but you don't expect him here.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Oh,
I think
Do we
Chris is
expect
gonna-
town council here?
Chris is coming.
Okay,
Because he's
Yeah.
not here
all
yet.
right, all right, let's go on to the engineering
Let's
thing.
just do it.
Who's spokesman for the engineering?
Roy, you want to come up and
Rob.
just give an overview to the board?
Tom, do you want to come up here too?
I'm Roy Gardner, Vice Chairman of the Planning Board. I think a
Can you
couple of things
introduce-
have been
Tom
happening.
introduce himself also.
Tom Duquette, Chairman of the Board of Health. And just, if I could, I believe we should be opening up our meeting
Yes.
concurrently
Oh,
with
yeah, we have
yours.
Quorum, yeah.
I would make a motion to open the East Bridgewater Board of Health meeting for April 14th, 2025. All in favor?
Okay. Shoot.
Okay, quick overview and summary of what's been going on. So over the last 4 or 5 years, as the majority of the town officials know, we had a in-house town engineer for many, many decades. Mr. Delano retired from being our town engineer. We had to go outside and find an outside engineering firm, which we did. Several things seem to get in the way with how we've done business in the past. One of those is the response time it takes to get information back from the town engineer, understanding environmental partners and now Apex. We're both basically national engineering firms which have turnaround times measured in weeks. Site visits scheduled, have to be scheduled a week more in advance. Also, their cost are 4 to 5 times what we had paid the previous engineering firm, Delano and Associates. The thought is, at this point in time, when, in the past, we've always had 2 members of the planning board, at least 2. Myself is one of those. David Johnson in the past was another one of those, who could review most of the simple plans without having to go to an outside engineer. As we all know, David Johnson hasn't been on the board for a while. I'm potentially not going to be running after my term runs out next year, which would leave no elected members of the board available to review plans, which means they'd have to all go outside. So what we've done is we've done a financial summary of funds that were expended for town engineering items for just the planning board over the last 3 years. That number is in the bottom right-hand corner of page 5 of that sheet, just under $180,000. Important to note that that number does not include any of the engineering fees that would be associated with stormwater management, with the Conservation Commission, or the Board of Health. That's exclusively planning board engineering fees. Now, the thought would be if we bring an in-house engineer, that in-house engineer could cover some of the duties, if not the majority of the duties for the planning board, as well as stormwater management, Conservation Commission, and engineering-related functions of the Board of Health. Now, in addition to that, we've talked many times in the last few years of raising the fees for applications for building, for approvals of all of the various things, whether it be planning board approvals through site plan approvals and/or subdivision approvals, Conservation Commission approvals, and so on and so forth. But since we always go to an outside engineer for our engineering services, we don't have a good justification to raise those fees. Most of the communities around us that have in-house engineers have much higher fees for filings with us because those fees cover those engineering services that are done by an in-house engineer. So the expectation would be that with a raising of the fees in the various departments that would use the engineering services, if we have an in-house engineer, that we would come very close, if not more than cover the overall cost of both salary and benefits of that engineer. In addition to that, it would address the ongoing issue that's a serious problem right now of when we have a problem in town, especially during, for example, a high-volume rainstorm, we don't have anybody we can call from an engineering side to take a look at that will come down and look at it in the next 24 hours. We used to have that for the better part of 3 decades when we had Delano and Associates. If we had a problem, Delano and Associates would be at the site before the rain stopped. That doesn't happen anymore. It hasn't happened for the last 3 or 4 years. That needs to be fixed. So, but between the raising of the fees of all of the things that use engineering services, the thought would be over time and over a yearly average, probably a rolling average of 3 to 5 years in time, most of the cost of that engineer, if not all of it, would be paid by those fees that we're collecting. So that's basically the information that we've gathered to date.
Okay. What type of responsibilities would you suggest taking away from the health agent to give a one-person engineer?
The most obvious one would be septic system approval, since the septic system design in the state of Massachusetts would be required to be stamped by an engineer. So under state engineering guidance and best practices, those plans should be reviewed by an engineer. That would be the primary one. And that effectively covers every single septic system redesign and/or new design in the town, because those all have to be done by a third-party engineer who has an engineering stamp and is qualified to do septic systems.
Tom?
Yeah, we've reached out to a couple of different resources to discuss possibilities with restructuring the department. First, our regional group, HBHEG, who is helping us right now cover between health agents, and also the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards, who are here, and Cheryl Spara and Michael Hugo, who offered to come in and give a presentation to both boards on, the Board of Health, its powers and its obligations. And it's my understanding that there are some legal aspects that may present problems with potentially shifting some of that work from the Board of Health to any other department. In addition to, possible service concerns, things like that. So they wanted to come in and talk to both boards.
Okay. If you're ready to come up, Mike, Cheryl?
I just, Mr. Chair, I just have to open up the PowerPoint presentation for
Okay.
Cheryl, so give me one moment.
I have a question.
Yes.
All right. Roy, this is like from FY '23, so it's from '22 to '25, but do you have a fiscal year breakout of how much we're spending each year? Because 178 is covering more than just,
It's almost 3 years.
right, but do you have it for each fiscal year broken out that way, or an average per fiscal year?
Well, the average would be basically that number divided by 3. That number was higher 3 years ago, it was a little bit lower 2 years ago, it was higher again this year, so it's going to vary depending on
Right.
on the scope and size of projects in the town. But the thought was, based on what we've seen in the amount of engineering hours that were expended when we had John Delano, although his rates were very different than these, is that a 5-year rolling average would come very close to paying the engineering fees when we add in the stormwater management and upgraded fees that would come from Board of Health potentially and from the Conservation Commission.
I think it would be helpful if we could see the whole, including the other things that he's talking about, as a fiscal year breakout. I'm sure you guys can do that. Thank you.
While we're waiting, if you could introduce yourself.
Sure, happy to. My name is Cheryl Sabara. I am the Senior Staff Attorney and the Executive Director of the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards. We are a membership association comprised of Board of Health members and staff, if the staff are interested, and we provide legal education and technical assistance to the 351 local boards of health in Massachusetts. I have been with MAHB for 25 years now.
I am Michael Hugo, and I'm the Director of Strategies and Government Relations for MAHB, and thank you for hearing from us today.
The dreaded Duolingo.
Sorry.
Second verification.
Right.
Charlie, you want to sing us a tune while we're waiting?
Like I said, if you want to clear the room, that's the only reason for me to do that.
Let's do the dance again. Success. We're there. Almost.
Okay, good idea.
That's a good idea.
So I introduced myself, and Mike introduced himself, and the first slide for any attorney is going to be a disclaimer that says that we are not providing legal advice, just legal education and technical assistance. You have a very able municipal attorney who provides legal advice to you and to the town of East Bridgewater. So we are, as I said, a nonprofit organization, a membership association. We were established in 1982 by the Conservation Law Foundation because the attorneys there were receiving a lot of questions from boards of health about public health law, and there was really no one who could answer those questions for them. So they founded the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards with that specific purpose in mind. Oh, are you going to do the slides, or?
I'm going to give it to you so that you can.
Oh, okay.
Full-
So we'll just do sort of a brief introduction because it's really not known by a lot of folks what the legal authority of the Board of Health actually is in a city or town. Because normally the way we look at public health law in our country is the federal law really just sets minimum standards. The legal authority to protect public health is within the police power of a municipality. And that's something that very few people really think about. To protect the health, safety, and welfare of the residents is part of the police power, and the Board of Health holds that police power to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. And sometimes when they do that, you know, it can get in the way of a person's individual freedom, or it can get in the way of a business's right to conduct business. So we constantly are doing this balancing test between protecting public health and protecting an individual's freedom and the right to engage in business. So that's a job that boards constantly are undertaking in their decision-making. Next slide, please. Oops, that's me.
you.
That's me. Okay, so, and this legal authority of boards to enact local laws has been consistently upheld by the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court, which is our highest court. So, laws that boards of health enact stand on the same footing as a statute, a regulation, or a town bylaw. And when a court is reviewing a law, if someone is challenging the Board of Health's authority to enact a law, they're not going to strike that law down. They're going to presume that the law, the validity of the law, and a challenger really has to prove the absence of any conceivable ground upon which the regulation has been upheld. And I'm not going to go through the case because I'm not going to bore you with it, but suffice it to say, there have been no local regulations, with the exception of one, because it was poorly written, where the SJC stepped in and substituted their judgment for the judgment of the Board of Health. Because they're the administrative body that makes the decisions, and the board doesn't, the court does not have the authority to challenge their decisions unless their decisions are unreasonable and not supported by the evidence, or were illegal or capricious. However, and having said that there is a broad authority for boards of health, there are also some limitations that are on them. And the first is, are there any federal or state laws that would preempt you from acting, that would prevent them from doing? Did the federal government take charge of that area of the law, or did the state say that cities and towns can't further regulate? In Massachusetts, public health is very broad and the authority is very broad. But then you also, as a Board of Health, are going to want to look at a risk assessment. Is there harm that's being caused to others? Is the harm to those that are more susceptible, less able to advocate or protect themselves? For instance, youth, elderly, those with special needs. A lot of regulations are designed to protect those specific populations? Or is this a situation where the harm is caused by one person against another? In other words, is this maybe a private situation between two individuals and not a situation that might cause danger to public health? Next slide.
You're
Oops,
the next
that's
one.
me. So the bottom line is, and this is what I always tell boards, just because you can doesn't mean you should. They have very broad authority, but it should be exercised with discretion, with the priority being public health, but they also want to think about some other things. And here are some things that you want to consider when you're considering whether to enact a regulation or do some enforcement. And this is a situation in Brookline, probably 20 years ago, when the Brookline Board of Health wanted to pass a regulation that prohibited the use of cell phones in cars. Now, public health issue, yeah, it's dangerous to be using a cell phone while you're driving. Could the Board of Health actually enforce that? You know, last time I looked, boards didn't have access to vehicles with sirens on them. You know, they don't have experience in collecting someone's identification when you're in a car. It wasn't going to be effective because they couldn't enforce it. So those are some of the things that you want to think about, and you also want to make sure that what you're proposing is evidence-based, that there is evidence that it's a policy that is going to result in positive outcomes. So in Massachusetts, the way our local boards work is that the state legislature actually delegated the vast majority of its power to local boards of health. And they've also delegated local boards of health as the primary enforcing agent. So local boards can strengthen state laws, but they cannot weaken state laws. So in addition to the authority to enact regulations, Chapter 111 designates many other areas where boards of health have the legal authority and obligation to protect. And here are just some of them. I'm just going to point out nuisances and noisome trades, because those are areas of the law that are extremely comprehensive and that are under the legal authority of boards of health. So the nuisance law specifically says that boards of health shall, not may, but shall, look into all sources of filth, causes of sickness within its town, which may, in its opinion, be harmful to public health. And this is an area of the law that Professor Prosser said there is perhaps no more impenetrable jungle in the entire law than that which surrounds the word nuisance. And now you've got 3 volunteers that are responsible for examining into something that may cause sickness to public health. And if they find that it does, then they have to destroy it or make regulations relative to it. And farming procedures are exempt from that. So how does the board determine whether something is a nuisance? And again, it's up to the board. It's what in the board's opinion, what in the board's judgment creates or could create danger. But it can be based on and should be based on public health principles. So, you know, it is the condition only relative to one person in one household, or could the condition spread to neighboring people or neighboring households? Could it spread to the entire town? Is there a real risk to public health? Could the condition cause the transmission of disease? Could the condition cause trauma? And could it cause exposure to hazardous elements or substances? So if the board determines that a nuisance exists, then they are required to issue a cease and desist order, ordering the individual or the business that is causing that nuisance to abate that nuisance. And the statute's very specific on the amount of the fine and what happens if the nuisance does not get abated. And if it doesn't, then the municipality can abate it at the expense of whoever caused it. And we have templates that we share with boards of health on these issues. Noise and trades is another area that gives boards very broad discretion, and common examples of these are asphalt plants. There was just a decision upholding a board's order in Acushnet on an asphalt plant. And, you know, this is an area where boards could either prohibit a business from coming into town or set conditions on that operation. So I'm going to hand this over to Mike right now, and I just want to clarify something that someone said earlier about getting an engineer's certificate. You have to have a plan certified by an engineer. Normally, when these come before the Board of Health, it's the applicant for the system that pays the charge for the engineer to certify that whatever the plan is and how the plan works. So I'm going to just turn that over.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, there's a new statute that just was signed into law in December. So it's brand-new law, and it completely affects how boards of health and their municipalities handle public health across the state. And this particular town is very much front and center part of this new program I'm about to talk to you about. But this is one of our older publications, and these are things that boards of health are exclusively empowered to deal with. And it's a little easier to see it in this particular format. No one else in town has jurisdiction over any of these issues. This is strictly Board of Health. Okay, so the new law is called SAFE, State Action for Public Health Excellence. And the newer version of it is called Statewide Accelerated Public Health for every community, but that's all irrelevant. What's important to know is that there are 351 cities and towns. There are 351 boards of health. Every one of them wants to write their regulations the way that they want them. Every one of them wants to fit their citizenry. Cheryl and I balance 351 separate sets of regulations, and when we're asked to draft something for a town, we talk to the Board of Health at length about what's best for your town. We don't want what works even in Bridgewater or West Bridgewater to affect what East Bridgewater has for regulations. So everybody has their own thing. The map you're looking at right now, every town that's colored in on that map is now part of a public health excellence collaborative. And the new law has established 51 so far. There'll be another couple added, but there are 51 collaboratives involving 321 of the 351 towns as we speak right now. And you are part of one. You are part of one of the collaboratives, and we'll talk about that in a second, right after this slide. In 2016, the state legislature put together a special commission to study how local and regional public health services are delivered across the state. And basically, they came back with the conclusion that public health is broken in Massachusetts. Everybody's doing their own thing. There's no equity. Actually, I didn't spend time today on this because I was so busy trying to finalize the slides for your town. But I could sit here with some certainty and tell you that there's probably a 5 or 6 year difference in life expectancy between various Bridgewaters. That's how much public health affects each town. And in fact, when I was doing one for Western Massachusetts, I found 2 towns. One of them was Belchertown. I think the other one was Palmer or Ware. And there's an 11-year difference. Those 2 towns touch each other. An 11-year difference in life expectancy. So we're talking real issues about.
We go to Belchertown.
Yeah, you might want to check and you might want to move. Anyway, all right. So you are part of this Public Health Excellence Collaborative, and I will tell you that I don't know whether you've followed what's gone on in your collaborative with the town of Halifax, but Halifax is the host community. And they have, in light of your recent changes in some of your personnel in the health department, they have really been here to do everything that they possibly could to help your town. And that is because you're part of this collaborative with the towns that you see in blue at letter C there. The only requirements to participate in this program are that you have to have signed a letter of commitment, which you did. Your chair, about 2 or 3 years ago, signed that, and your chair of your Board of Health signed that. Maybe the town manager did 3 or 4 years ago. I'm not sure which it was in this town. But in that, you only make 2 promises. One is that you'll cooperate with the host, which is Halifax, and 2 is that you won't supplant programs. The program is here. This whole strategy is there to add to your capacity and not to substitute for what you have already. So you can't supplant. You can only use this to supplement. And the other requirements are that you have to have a shared services coordinator. Your gentleman is named Bob Bucher. I don't know if you know Bob or not, but he's your shared services coordinator for all of those towns. You need to have 1 primary and 1 backup MAVEN reporter. MAVEN is for reporting communicable diseases, infectious diseases. And then you have to have a governance board that meets at least quarterly. I think your board meets about every month or even sometimes more frequently than that. And then you need to do, every 3 years, you have to do a financial report to go to the state so that they can go to the legislature looking for more money for this program. These are your numbers, and there's a couple things that are very interesting about your numbers. Last year's, or FY25's budget was $584,000. This year, you've actually cut it by almost $17,000, while the rest of your town budget, your proposed town budget for FY26 has a 6% or well, that's at 6.087% increase, but you're cutting public health, which will probably raise some eyebrows with the Department of Public Health when they look at your funding for how you're funding your public health department and your grant participation. The Halifax grant is fully funded for $1,223,753.79 for the next 3 years. It's completely funded. When you read the paper about cuts to HHS, CDC, and the cuts that you're seeing in the newspapers right now that are coming out of Washington, this money for the next 3 years is solid. It's not subject to being taken back, although there's 1 grant for $52.6 million that goes to the state, which is subject to recall, but the state has already spent it all, so there's nothing to return. What your group has right now is you have a full-time shared services grant coordinator. Bob Bucher is a registered sanitarian, so if you have a restaurant that needs to get inspected and the other folks that are part of this grant are unavailable, Bob will jump in and do that inspection. It could, not just restaurants, we're talking about housing issues, we're talking about hoarding, and I know that your town has had a significant hoarding issue in at least one case, and needed to lean very heavily on the collaborative to get through that. They have a full-time inspectional service inspector doing food and general tobacco. General tobacco is not the tobacco enforcement. That's another person. Bob Collette is just starting with this collaborative now to do that. And there's 5 shared health inspectors. Each of the towns that's participating has pledged their health inspectors to be available for any other town on basically a mutual aid, drop of a hat. If you need them here tomorrow, you'll have somebody here tomorrow. They'll find somebody that'll come here and cover for you. You don't have a health inspector anymore that is shared in this pool. So there's 6 towns in the group. 5 of them have health inspectors that they're contributing. You're not contributing anything at this time as inspectors. Then there's contract services for septic, camp, MAVEN, hoarding, rapid response, emergency general board of health coverage since Jean Marie left town. So here's the policy reasons behind SAFE. Basically, the state and the report of the special commission concluded that the best way to take care of trying to put everybody on the same page is to share services, and that's exactly what the Halifax group is. It's a shared services arrangement. And they look at issues of equity. And when I say equity, I'm not talking about racial equity, although I am, but not only racial equity. One of the equity pieces that they've looked at is that the state has committed, out of the $200 million in ARPA funding, $98.8 million is being used for data improvement across the state. So Maven, where you used to type into the computer that we have 15 cases of COVID, now, for the first time under this new program, the state will take those numbers, crunch them, and you'll know exactly what the other Bridgewaters and what Halifax had and what Barnstable has and what Great Barrington has for numbers, and you'll be able to compare yourself, because now all of the information you put in is going to come back to you completely processed. You'll know how many diseases, you'll know how many cancers you have. And that's very important in Plymouth right now because of what's going on with the power plant. They're doing cancer studies right now. That's all coming out. That's equity. And what makes that an equity piece is that every Board of Health in Massachusetts, including yours, will receive inspection software paid for by this program and the computer equipment, the tablets to do the inspections on when they go into the restaurants, and all of the software to drive that and to do the analysis. And that's being provided whether or not people are in the grant. That's one of the equity pieces. Everybody has to be brought to one level. And then DPH has an obligation to promote and provide adequate resources, which is also known as money. What they're trying to do, of course, is in the red in that bottom part, and I'm not going to read it to you because I don't believe in reading slides. These are the mandatory new standards. There has to be a new level of inspections. That's why the software is being distributed. There has to be better epidemiology and communicable disease reporting, because as we learned in COVID, when the stuff breaches the dam, it goes very, very fast. The new permitting, there'll be electronic permitting paid for by the state, and all of the workforce education is now being done in training hubs. So no longer will you have to be sending people to UMass Amherst in a hotel for overnight and paying huge amounts of money for their tuitions. All trainings have to be free, and they now have 10 training hubs. So I'm not sure where the closest one here is. I'm going to guess that it's probably New Bedford. Would be the furthest that they have to go. The training hubs are actually sending people to each of the towns. So when they do the training, when you have an inspector that needs to be trained, they'll send somebody here to do that. And I'm getting through almost, just a couple more minutes. The obligations of the Board of Health are that you have to implement the standards. If you're not part of the grant group, you still are, they're still responsible. You're part of the grant group, so that doesn't really matter. But even those who are at the little white squares on that map still have the same obligations. An annual report showing that there's compliance, and if your board is not meeting the compliance requirements, the state will look at withholding funding from that town for any further health-related funding that may be coming your way. And I'm going to keep moving here. And the DEP and the DPH have obligations to provide the trainings for free, which I've just mentioned, and funds to the boards of health to be able to meet all of these. This is not an unfunded mandate. The state has to give you money for basically, since you're part of the program, part of the Public Health Excellence Program, they have to give you money for essentially everything that they're telling you that you have to do. And back to that one thing, that this is not meant to allow you to do away with something. I'll give you one solid example. In one town in Berkshire County, the town had a $7,000 nursing contract with the VNA. Their Public Health Excellence Group was providing nursing. They said, well, let's cancel that nursing contract, save $7,000 for the town. And the mistake they made was, it was fine to do that, but the mistake they made was they turned that money over to the DPW to paint stripes on highways, or maybe to put a new light bulb in a crossing lamp or something. And that, because it left the health department, that was considered supplanting. So that town had to write a check for $7,000 for the nursing contract money to their Public Health Excellence Collaborative. And that's what I want to be very careful about with you guys, because at this point you have taken, in one case last year, $9,487 of grant money was spent on your town. So if you're starting to cut your Board of Health budget, that's when I started, I mentioned that the state might look at that sort of askance when they see that you're cutting budget when your group is pumping money directly into your town. So these are the DEP's training and funding obligations. That first one in red, technical assistance, that's why we're sitting here. We are paid by DPH to be doing what we're doing right now. And you're going to have these slides, so I'm not going to read them all to you, and I think I actually should be almost done. Yes. The last section in the new statute reads, "Nothing in the statute shall limit the authority of the Board of Health as otherwise established pursuant to the general laws." And what that does is that keeps Cheryl and I coming to visit the towns when you want to do a new regulation and do it the way you want it, because this assures autonomy of every Board of Health by statute. And that was something that I'm going to compliment Cheryl here, because she was part of the special commission, and none of their report would have made it to paper if they didn't give in on leaving the boards of health alone and allowing Massachusetts to continue with home rule, which is so important to our state as a general proposition. And with that, we're done.
Does anyone have any questions?
Peter?
Oh, really?
This is sort of your area of expertise, so.
It is, yeah. No, I mean, I guess I'm just a little confused. What we got this education for? I mean, I guess I need someone from the Board of Health now. I need Tom to step up and explain to me what we're doing, like what we're trying to figure out. I'm lost. I mean, I sat on the Board of Health for 18 years, so I understand the obligation of that board and those elected officials, have all that respect for the 3 members. First of all, I didn't know you were coming today, right? I mean, that was a surprise to me. I didn't know that you were contacted, which was even a bigger surprise to me. So I guess I'd ask since it's an open meeting with both of us, through the chair, ask Tom to come up and kind of, explain what the process was from the last time we sat here talking about potential town engineer to where we are right now.
And let me just throw.
Well, I'd rather hear from him first, and then you can speak after that. Would that be okay?
It's your meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem, Peter. I'm sorry, we did try to reach out to you. I know you had a bit of stuff going on this last week and stuff. But no, we had reached out first to the HPHEG group to try to get a handle on how we might be able to restructure, move some stuff around, whether within the Board of Health, within town. They told us to reach out to the Mass Association of Health Boards. We started asking them some of the same questions. They pointed out some potential issues with supplanting, and offered to either give us an instructional, educational presentation, offered to also give it to the Board of Health. When I brought it up, either doing a Board of Health meeting or bringing it to your board, it was suggested that we do both together, so that's what we're doing.
Right. So I guess my next question would be to yourself and the rest of the members of the board. So are you, from the conversations we had before, I'm really confused. Like, it seems like you've taken a 180, like you've gone completely backwards to what we were working towards. I mean, if the Board of Health is not interested at all in working with the rest of the departments of the town in this process, then, that we could have that conversation, I would have thought, prior to bringing in, the educators here that, just gave us 20 minutes of, whatever that was.
Right.
I don't understand. I'm gonna let the other two speak, but I just don't know what we needed to hear all that about, where we could have just had the board explain to us exactly what their stance was. At least that's my personal opinion.
Well, and again, this came into us a little bit late, this whole thing. I know we've been talking about engineers for a long, long time. I wasn't aware of that much conversation going on between the Board of Health and you and John and whoever was else involved. I did hear Roy had sent us something a while ago about, now's the time to look at an engineer, and basically that's as far as it went for conversation. Then again, we're talking about taking some of this responsibility away from the Board of Health, possibly setting up with an engineer, and I have a few more questions with Roy about that. And I think that's, where they're coming from too, is, because I was unaware what your meeting was, that they changed their way around because we didn't know what that way was. Okay, so what I think we have to do now is just regroup here, at least for Carol and myself. What agreements had this group got together with? And what did you decide in the interest of the town? I know we have some of the information about what an engineer would be doing. Some of the questions that I could think, there was all the stuff that, Apex has been doing. Well, did John Delano do all that? Did John Delano have to source some of that stuff out? He had his own associates. I don't know how many people he had working for him, but I know he was here for decades. Is there a lot of new stuff that have come up in the last 3 or 4 years that John Delano may not have been able to handle in his association that would still have to farm out even if we had an engineer here? Like I said, this stuff is all new to me, so this is what, I guess, where are we with the whole conversation, and what do we have to do? And I don't think it's a decision that's going to be made overnight. I think we need to hear from a lot of different people, but if it's something that we feel has to get done, we're going to need a lot more meetings before town meeting to try and create that situation.
Yeah, I mean, to a degree. So, the question would be, like, we don't even have to have a discussion at all if the Board of Health wants to maintain the same role as they had, which is fine. It's up to their elected board. I mean, they can, certainly make that determination based on their conversations with, the party they're involved in. I don't have a problem with that. What I'm saying is that, I would have appreciated, or somebody else would have appreciated, did they talk to you, Charlie? Did you have a conversation with somebody that I don't know of regarding, this group and what was going on?
No, other than that they had asked if they could come in. I wasn't expecting as large a presentation. Because
Right.
I think the central question for us really is, we're looking at the engineer. Engineer can review plans. Engineer can review the septic system plans. Is that doable under, in the sense of, can the Board of Health delegate that?
Well, before we even get to that question, is if the Board of Health wants to participate in that. That's my whole point right now. Like, if they don't, that's fine. I mean, again, elected board, they have the opportunity to go forward with the same credentials that they had prior to getting a new health agent, which I don't have a problem with. I just don't want to waste Roy's time, John's time, Paula's time, everybody else that's been involved in the process if the board doesn't want to participate in it. That's all. That's all I'm asking.
Does, John?
Just for point of clarification, it's my understanding of the discussion, and I hope the impression wasn't that there was an intent to usurp the authority of the Board of Health. The intent, well, my understanding, the intent of our conversations would be the town engineer would assume those review and inspection responsibilities, acting as an agent of the Board of Health. There was never an attempt that, though that statutory authority that the Board of Health has over sanitary issues and concerns would be relinquished. It was that, and in our conversations 2 weeks ago when we sat in and had a brief, it wasn't brief, it was an hour and a half.
Long, yeah.
Was that what it potentially would do would allow for the engineer position to address the sanitary needs of that role of the Board of Health, and then a different scope would be able to be looked at as how we would look at a public health agent. And that health agent would have, again, under the authority of the Board of Health, would have a much more what we may think of as public health related concerns, human health, and the septic portion would still all reside under the approval of the Board of Health, but they would now have this engineer to be their agent when reviewing septic plans and such. I hope that wasn't lost, because that was the intent of what was being proposed. It was.
I think on conversations that I had, I think that may have been lost somewhere along the line.
Yeah, so if I could, Mr. Chairman, I think one of the things that's important here is that, from my experience, and I've been on the planning board for 4 decades, I've worked closely with the Board of Health in the past. All of the towns that I reviewed information on have a town engineer, one or more town engineers who support the Board of Health. They're in a supporting role to everyone. They're not their own department. They support planning board, DPW, stormwater management, conservation, and Board of Health. The intent is not for them to degrade the work that the Board of Health does. The intent is to potentially raise the level of the work that's done, as they're an engineer. They also can supervise and/or approve as-built plans. As of right now, to the best of my knowledge, and I know it's been that way in the past because I've had the experience personally at my home, there is no engineer other than the engineer that I hired that puts his name and stamp on a plan. The Board of Health just signs it. That isn't done in most towns anymore. Most towns have an engineering review, even if it's just a quick cursory review to run through the numbers.
I have a question, and maybe this, Cheryl or Michael, maybe one of you could answer that. Is there some component of this that we're missing, that like we're not supposed to be having an engineer take some of this
No,
away?
no.
Because that's what I was led to believe, was like we're doing something illegal by taking this away from the health agent.
No, and I apologize for wasting 20 minutes of your time. I'm not
No, I mean, to the point where, like, what she's saying, like.
I apologize.
Right.
But what I think the concern here is, and why we were contacted, is the concern was there are a lot of legal obligations on boards of health. And and as you said, they have the legal authority and they can delegate that authority to someone else if they choose to delegate that authority to someone else. The board's concern, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that they're concerned that somewhere down the line, they are going to lose the expertise that the board needs to have in performing all of the functions that a Board of Health should be and must be performing. And they're also concerned that in this and a separate concern is in this Public Health Excellence Collaborative, that the fact that the collaborative has stepped in and done a lot of the work that should be done by someone who doesn't exist now in the health department. You have one person in the Board of Health now, that's it, just her. So that their concern is that that's going to put East Bridgewater in a slippery situation when it comes to you participating in the Public Health Excellence Collaborative. So it's two things. They're concerned about having someone on board in East Bridgewater to do the manual that we put up there of public health laws to get all that work done. And number two, are you putting yourself in a precarious situation by not having a health director at all in that? Because
but that is just a temporary situation.
Well, it's been around for a little bit, hasn't it? That you haven't had anyone?
A month?
I mean, I would defer to the chair on that, like, where are you in the process?
Well, the way that we kind of came back into this process was through trying to reach out and look out for a replacement health agent. And just to say, I'm not against hiring a town engineer. I think the town needs it. I think it's a good way to spend money that we have. I just don't know if moving the Title V portion of the health board over to an engineer that resides outside of the health board causes a lot of problems in terms of our regional group and potentially with the state as well. So that was the...
So are you saying that, because maybe I should know this already, but are you saying that your process of hiring a health agent is stalled right now because of this proposal?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
But only for the last,
Did you know that?
2 weeks.
Because we're trying to do is
Okay.
figure out if we're going, if we're gonna have a town engineer, we need to know what that town
Okay, well,
engineer is gonna do.
That's what
And
we
if-
need.
and if
we're
what-
taking something away from the,
So it would adjust the
Health
salary and
It
responsibility.
would adjust the salary of the
basically. Yeah,
health
which is
director,
possibly-
which would change the qualifications of the person coming in. And if it can all get paid for by fees, and it doesn't affect the budget for the Board of Health, then that's a different thing. And that's what I heard my partner up here say, that it could be covered by fees. And, you'd cover everything by fees.
Okay. Anyone else have questions?
I just need to clarify this. It wasn't your board that called us and said, help, help. It was actually the collaborative that reached out to us and to the Department of Public Health. And when they reach out to DPH calls Cheryl and I and says, can you go just, because we're kind of like a special master, if you would. We're watching.
All right, I'm glad that was clarified.
Yeah, I don't want you to think that they called
Don't
us.
want any feelings. The Board of Health have any further questions? Rob? Rob?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, not at the moment. But let me just, I will say something that this, as we all know, government at all levels moves at a snail's pace. And this particular proposal came at lightning speed. And I know there was some meetings that took place, but again, as we just found out, I should say the board, at our last meeting, that our hiring process was on hold because of this. So, it just, I was surprised at how fast this was moving forward. And I don't want to say it came out of nowhere, because I knew you guys had meetings and discussions, but from a total board's perspective, it just seemed to have, like, there it is. And we haven't really had a time to meet, chat, look at the findings that you have, look at or repropose what findings we have, other than the team that's here tonight. So I'm just personally asking that we tap the brakes a little bit and just get together and be, really fact-based on what we're looking at moving forward. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? I agree. I think we need to get that. I think the, Peter and John and Paula, and maybe with a meeting with the entire Board of Health, okay? And I think I need some clarifications on the figures that were brought up. Like I said, I know we're talking $178,000.
Yeah, but that's over 3 years.
That's over 3, so we're talking, $60,000 or so, $70,000 a year. We have to look at how much is an engineer going to cost us. We have to get a job description for an engineer. We have to determine, again, if we bring in one person, do we have enough foresight to find out how much would that one person, based on that resume, she may have to outsource? Do we have to make sure we keep that into consideration as far as the budget is concerned? We have to look at the health agent. Okay, if we are taking some of that responsibility out, we've already posted a job with the job description, and this is all a part of the job description, which we're now taking out of that. Do we now have to repost that position? Do we possibly have to change the salary? Do we have to possibly change the hours? So this is not something that we could possibly, consider bringing to a vote tonight. But I think we have to have something in place where we all get back together again, we get all the information that we're looking for. And I know, unfortunately, the town accountant's not here tonight, but I know we're still waiting for some figures from her. So these are the things that we have to, so we can bring this forward. And again, I would like to see this done as soon as possible. If we can get it done, before town meeting, let's get it done. If not, if we have to, if it works out afterwards, then we'll bring it into whatever we have to do to get it done. And I don't think the select board itself has a vote on whether or not we bring in a town engineer or not. That's not up to us.
As long as the department has the money, but obviously you sign the payroll and everything.
Right.
If the department that you appoint the department head is hiring people for positions that are new, I think you have a role to play to say to that department head, we're either going forward with this or not. We're directing you to do this or not.
It is a direction, but it's not an official vote of the board. I agree.
Isn't it? Well, and I would just say philosophically, right now, it's going to take a lot to persuade me that we should be creating a new position. I hear what you've said, I know what you guys have said. but we're gonna be laying people off this year. We just voted on a salary grid where no one's getting any increases. And I know that, there's some potential cost savings, but there's also increased costs that come with a position. There's PTO that has to be considered. There's health insurance that has to be considered. There's a lot more to this than just, it'll be a quicker turnaround. I know that's important, but I don't know that that's the most important thing when we're telling our people that we can't give them raises.
Well, I don't think that, Carol, I don't think that was the intent at all. I think what we did is we have, many departments that are using a service that we're paying thousands and thousands of dollars on. The first process that we did originally, back when I first got on, was we hired EP. And EP came in, and at that time, they took care of a service for us that was all over the place. I mean, the bottom line is being effective and efficient for the residents. We weren't doing that. We weren't even close to doing that. EP came in, they had a service, it was extremely good for a period of time. Then, like any company, they go out, they sell to a bigger company, and all those things change. Roy can tell you, John can tell you what the charges and what the services were. The idea of the group in these departments was to kind of figure out a way that we could internally do something that would continue to be efficient and the right thing for the town and for those people that are looking for this, at the same time being cost effective with Melanie's help, who sat down too. So there was conversation. The only part that was kind of messy in this whole thing was that Jean Marie, was gone before we knew it, and the Board of Health had a hole to fill. Having sat with that board for many, many years, I knew that they had a collaborative group that they could lean on for a period of time. I'm not sure how long that period of time was. I mean, I guess they could have came and said, hey,
not
look.
as much as we thought.
Right, but they could come back and say, listen, we're on the clock here. But that being the point, and it being wintertime, there's not as much septic stuff going on. That's what the conversation was directed at that time. Let's continue to, and I continue to say that the people we have in these departments, that's what we want them to do. We want them to work together to figure out more effective ways to spend our money in all these departments. So that was the feeling and the momentum, and most of it was carried by Roy and by that track meeting that they've set up 4 or 5 years ago when they sit in there and discuss these things. And Patrick too, had some ideas there. So that was all that was. And again, the only issue I think we had, or not even an issue, but the only confusion we had was the fact that the Board of Health was in a pickle. Right. There's no doubt. And I can understand not only them, but more so Sandra sitting in that position, having to take on certain roles. So, but other than that,
and I appreciate that. This is clearly our first conversation about this. If anybody thinks we violate open meeting law, obviously we don't, because none of, Peter's more involved in this than certainly David or I. So I just feel like when I say it's going to take something to persuade me, I don't mean I would say no. I just mean I need more. I need more information. We need more of a discussion, and however that plays out. And we're on a short clock, I guess, if we want to get it done for town meeting.
Because one way or the other, you're going to have a budget line item someplace to fix that.
But we don't have that yet, right? We don't have a proposed line item for this or anything yet, right? So that's, I guess, the part we'd be looking for. And also, like I had said to Roy, this is good because this is planning, but let's include those other costs that we're talking about and get a better handle on what the entire savings, would be from the stormwater and the other things.
Roy and I have talked about an engineer since I was on that board 20 years ago. So it is slow.
Sorry, Jim. I think that the part, what you said, and Rob, it was a lot of people trying to collaborate and department heads working together, and we have done that for a long time since I've worked here. And one of the reasons this town is always, you can ask John Clifford will tell you that he goes into a lot of towns, and we have a great workforce that works together. So this was just kind of meeting of the minds, trying to put this all together and make it work. And it was ultimately for the people of East Bridgewater. The stormwater management's coming up. We have the Central Street, new buildings all over there. They're building 20 more houses. So it was we know what's coming, and we're trying to put something in place that gives the people of the town too, or the potential home buyers of these new houses, to make sure this is done right. And we felt that this position could kind of encompass a lot of departments in covering certain needs that we see. And that current engineering company that we had been using, we didn't have the best like inspection services from them and the amounts that they were charging. So this was an opportunity to use someone that worked for the town to be able to always be on hand, to go out and do the inspections and make sure these builders and contractors is being done correctly. So, you know, that's where, you can hear, we were excited.
Well, I don't think anybody's trying to do
This is great
anything
for the town.
behind our backs, but at some point,
It
probably
was just
earlier,
kind
it
of
would have been
attractive.
better if it had come before this board. That's my,
Like I said,
where I am for right now.
Well, we were prepared to do that. The problem was we got, you know, we had Board of Health come to us with this presentation tonight. So you would have certainly heard
Yeah,
more
that was
information
great.
as we gathered it. I mean, Roy just put this together, what, 45 minutes ago, whatever the case may be. So he's
Roy's
got
had
other
this in
information.
his pocket for a long time.
So there's other information that was gathered. We just didn't.
That actually came through the accounting office today, but we had a 1-year summary and a 2-year summary almost 6 weeks ago. And the Board of Health was present in those track meetings until the Board of Health agent decided to leave. She knew we were working on this all along.
Okay.
And the problem we have is we've got houses in town that are averaging now $600,000 to $900,000. We do not have the required due diligence on all those engineering things that we need to have. We just don't. We do not have the responsiveness that we need to have when we see a problem, so that that problem can be addressed right away. The way things get addressed is an inspection comes a week or two later. Our inspection report comes a week after that. That inspection report goes to the developer's engineer. The developer's engineer modifies a plan, sends it in. That takes 2 more weeks to get that plan turned around. When that plan gets turned around and a new report generated back, it's now 8 to 10 weeks beyond where we were. We just don't have what we have to have, which all of the towns around us, almost all of the towns around us have. Almost every town has at least one engineer on staff. Some of the bigger towns around us that aren't that much bigger have a whole engineering department with 3 engineers on staff. We're the only town around us that doesn't have a planner on staff. We're so far behind the curve here that it's embarrassing to me. I'm an engineer by trade. I worked for 2 of the most rigid reporting and quality control systems in the country. I worked with the NRC. I worked with the Food and Drug Administration. What we're doing now compared to some of the towns around us is extremely poor job. And the fact of the matter is that there's a person doing that job who's not getting paid a dime. We need to fix that, because that person's not going to be here much longer. We're in trouble right now, and that's serious. We're in trouble right now. The thought is, with the amount of money that we know already we spend, with the raising of the fees for those departments, for the engineering services, there's no plan to take away the health part of the health department that they need to do. But septic systems, like most of the towns around us, should be reviewed by an engineer. And we take and I'm not saying the engineers that do those plans don't do a good job, and they put their stamp on there, which is their reputation, I understand that. But in the business I worked at for 43 years, the engineer who stamped the plan that came to us to use, we still had to review that plan and make sure it met the requirements that the stamp said it met. We're not doing that in a lot of stuff right now. We need to pick that up.
So for me, I would like to see the actual costs that include all the different departments that you talked about, right? And then also, what would the health agent's salary change be so that that money's, and like, let's look at figures, like, let's have that so that then we can.
Yeah, there was a lot of components.
You know,
we talked
pull
about.
all that into one thing that we can look at, because, yeah, if it is, you know, a savings, and if it is better, and the Board of Health is comfortable with, you know, some of that shift of, you know, that responsibility, then I feel like I can make a decision with all the information. I don't feel like we have all the information at this point.
Rob?
If I may, thank you, Mr. Chairman. But again, I think once everybody has a little more clarity on duties, the financials, long-term impact, that decision needs to be a co-decision. The Board of Health needs to vote to say, okay, we're going to delegate this away. Now, we don't have that information to make that decision now. But and I'm only speaking for one member of the Board of Health, but I would envision that the board would want to vote to whether or not the board wants to delegate this away. And that'll be part of the conversation.
Rob, I don't think they're talking about taking it away. That the engineer for that portion of septic would still be going through the Board of Health and stamping it. I don't think they're talking about taking that whole thing away, giving it to a person.
Well, maybe I used
back to the Board of Health.
that term incorrectly, but I think there are a lot of reservations about what it looks like going forward.
And I think we all know that, and that group that's been together, okay, Charlie, if you could coordinate everything together, you know what we need, we know what we're looking for, and we'll move on from there.
So I guess my final question is what are we doing with the hiring process? Is that on hold, or are we going to move forward?
I would think we'd have to put it on hold until we redefine what the responsibilities of that position are, and the salary that goes with it.
I don't know if we can tell, I mean, can this board tell another board, well, yeah, you guys can do whatever you want. I mean, that's, you're elected officials. I mean, you make the determination you need somebody, because Sandra needs somebody now, then that's the determination you have to do as a board. I mean, those are the.
They're an employee of the Board of Health, not
Right,
ours.
those are the heavy decisions that you ran for, right? So you get to make that choice. What you wanna
Pierre,
do.
I appreciate that, and again, I'm speaking for one person here. But one of the reasons why I personally have been around on the different boards for the last 12, 13 years is because the level of cooperation, as Paula, you mentioned, between the different departments. I mean, otherwise, why do it?
Right.
Right? And talking to friends around the country and having to listen to what they put on this, we must live in paradise, because I don't see any of that. So anyway, I don't want to get off on a huge diatribe about that, but I just wanted to make sure that we didn't think that there was anything nefarious. Peter, I appreciate your nod to the authority of the Board of Health and your knowledge and time on the board. So we just need a lot more information to make a informed decision.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
We all had a real good lesson tonight.
Yes, I am. Okay. Okay, thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I don't believe town council. I did leave, I met his office today, because if you remember, I remember on Friday, he sent a email out saying that the stuff that was sent to us was kind of discombobulated, so I couldn't make kind of hear, and he said there were no numbers. And there's still.
Conversations.
Yeah.
Just talked with them.
Yeah.
So he said the numbers were.
But the budget's not attached to the thing.
Yeah.
That's all right, we'll be here 3 minutes, because I'm still kind of wrapping my head what just happened, I don't know.
Chris was here and left.
I know, I saw him go by, he left.
He's right here.
Oh, he is here.
Well, he just didn't want to.
He's hiding.
He didn't want to sit in
He
here
wasn't
with us.
charging us for that time he wasn't in the room with us.
Yeah, right. We don't have to pay for the time you weren't actually at our meeting, right?
Portal's portal, Chris. That's how we run our businesses, Chris. Portal to portal.
Check his emails for the last hour.
Who was he
Yeah,
answering?
right, who's he charging then?
Wasn't one of us.
Yeah, Jamie and I.
That we know of.
So we can get, just because time is late, I know that was important, I'm sure.
I can't say we're in better shape than we were 24 hours ago on the warrant, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, the only thing that's.
Say we are or we aren't?
We are, right,
Okay.
Rebecca did a heck of a lot of work during the last.
Okay.
Yeah, since Friday, I think this whole thing has been cleaned up and.
A little bit.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
it has
not as
been.
good as it should be, but.
Right. So we can start right into them. So the special town meeting, I know, now this year, are you departing the board after this?
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is
I'll
his
be on the
swan
board for-
song.
For the meeting. So he gets everything?
Yes.
No, he gets Article 1 and that's it.
All right.
Make a motion that David does
Right.
all.
I think it's a fitting tribute. There's not that many anyway.
No.
First you're assuming I'm gonna be there.
Yeah, that's good luck. So I'll put you on the first one. This is, again, these are all, the first, you just, these are the fun things that have to be funded.
Right, and the only contract we'll be doing under Article 1 for the special is the patrol officers. We don't have an amount yet. The police department's working on, based on the memorandum of agreement the board just signed earlier tonight, they'll derive the figure.
Yeah, all right, so that's, a FinCom recommendation, majority vote. I apologize. Did we appoint a new fire chief?
Yep,
Yes.
tonight.
Will he be there? Do we want to put him to, or we have the deputy chief?
Yes,
there?
Yes, he'll be there.
absolutely.
And who is, what's, I don't,
Craig do it?
John DiZallo.
oh, I did see, is he from,
Easton.
he's from Easton, right?
From Bridgewater.
Lives in Bridgewater.
John will talk with Craig.
Oh, so, yeah, because,
He's not a
so he
resident.
lives in Bridgewater, so it has to be, so.
John's not a resident. so.
But he's coming from the Eastern Fire Department, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I did see that, okay. All right, so we'll have Craig Winslow hopefully do it. If not, somebody can step up. Same with the next one. These are just transfers of money going from one account to another. Obviously, the Finance Committee make a recommendation on it because and Capital would also Article 2, because I think it's to repair something. To repair ambulance.
Just confirm, Rebecca asked about majority votes on all these.
Yes.
Yeah, and the
I-
specials are all,
Yeah, I think there's
all
only one,
majority.
one that might not because there's money coming from out of a stabilization fund.
On the annual,
Opiate,
there's
right.
two, yeah, I think there's two on the annual.
So, and Mike Jenkins will do, Article 4. Finance Committee and Capital will recommend. And then obviously we have a relatively short annual. So the first three of those consent agreements that we just packaged together, we'll just do them as one. I'll explain that if everybody wants to talk about any one of them, we can. But we'll vote on them as a package, the first three.
They both start with 7. I know.
The first three, and they're all majority, and there's not Finance Committee, they're just things that have to be adjusted. Some of them are regular things we do every year. Article 4, Dave Walsh will present that, the Finance Committee. Now, again, those numbers have to come out, because I didn't see them attached.
No, there's no budget yet. The finance
Yeah,
committee's
no, I
meeting
know.
on Wednesday.
Well, that's why we get nervous when you're talking about spending money from the Board of Health or something. And then I think I saw Roy here. I think Roy is the planning board, so he'll have this MBTA zone.
Is there any reason why we didn't make that?
No, they
You
changed.
might want to pass it to one of you guys. You guys,
That's the
what
majority.
do you want to do the MBTA?
That's the majority, that's the majority of the MBTA. That changed with the, that changed when this
Troy accounts.
zoning changed, certain things now be a majority. This is one of them that is a majority vote. Just a little curtail, you spent 10
It's
months.
just on Article 4
Yeah.
for the budget.
Yeah.
I will check with Melanie, but I believe we may be using stabilization to.
Okay, so that might change to a 2/3. I need money to come down stabilization juice for 2/3.
I think is Kevin still the chair of the planning board?
There is no chair.
Oh, Kevin Riley,
Yeah.
just here.
Yeah, Roy's vice chair.
Yeah, I always think of Roy's because he's always the face of it. And so just a quick thing, for those of you who don't know, I serve on the zoning board, and we just, today we filed an approval of the Chapter 40B that you guys entered into in 2022 of the Friendly 40B. There is case law that says that project can be, and it is part of the MBTA zone, so people should, before they shoot it down, say, hey, we're getting a twofer.
Right.
Potentially a twofer here.
Doesn't matter what you tell. You could tell them you give them free ice cream.
Yeah,
It's not.
I know, you were there
Right.
over the 10 months.
I was there.
This is just, and again, this is just a majority, because this is the new law when they change it. zoning.
Right, because we're increasing the density,
Yeah,
therefore.
this is just a majority, and this will be Kevin Riley. Again, this is actually similar to what we're, this is Article 8, is similar to Article 1 in the,
Right.
Special.
So again, it will be the patrol officers. I need to review to see whether we're renewing any personnel contracts that we have to fund, but.
that's a majority, FinCom. Article 9. Again, I could just, Peter, I think
Peter,
I
8?
gave David the first one. Peter, you can do Article 8.
Sure.
Who's doing Article 7?
Kevin
Kevin
Riley,
Riley.
planning
So
board.
planning board will do 6, 7, and 8,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, there's a lot of plan, did I miss one?
No, eight will be.
Oh, I'm sorry, 5,
Eight will be
6, 7.
selectmen.
5, 6, 7 is the planning board.
Yeah,
chair.
that's the whole map and the whole, it's a lot combined too,
And
so
Article
Kevin Riley will do all
7
three of them.
Is also a majority?
They're all
Yeah,
majorities
they're
under
all,
the
yeah, 'cause they all
changes.
qualify as, for, so, yeah,
This new
majority.
zoning thing they passed a couple of years ago to try to increase. They said we're not gonna make it 2/3, we're gonna make it, majority. Article 9, Carol,
Sure.
that's a majority. We get a FinCom recommendation, that's all. It looks like it's just a buyback of some obligation to a retiring patrolman.
Control officers, I would say.
Article 10, David, if he's present, put a question mark.
Wouldn't Article 10 be the police chief? I mean, that's.
Article 9?
No, 10.
Yeah.
10 is
Yes.
the, what do you got for Article 10? The opioid?
Yes.
Yes, for $1,000.
$1,000.
Yeah.
I have 10.
Yep.
That's for the opioid. That's just to attend meetings and stuff, but the police chief is,
Is that
does all.
contact, oh, okay.
Just put police.
So we'll put police chief there.
So that's the one that 2/3.
And that'll be 2/3, because that's coming out of stabilization.
Yeah.
And the next one, too.
The next one's also, oh, yeah, so we'd have David, police chief do that one too?
Yes.
All right, so 11's gonna be switched to the police chief. And that's saying, that's a 2/3. You're gonna have nothing.
Again, he's like, I'm done.
I again apologize that I don't know who the chairman of the board of assessors are, because Paula doesn't live in town, so we need to have the, or somebody, I think last time we had somebody from the
Is it
selectmen
the
do
guy from
it.
Bridgewater? I mean Bridgewater, is the guy that was the Bridgewater building inspector?
Oh, Steve Solari.
He might be.
I think he's the chair now.
Yeah, he is, I saw it posted,
Yeah.
so we'll put him down, if he's not there, we'll just have, somebody can,
He better be, because I got 3 of them.
well, I'm trying to see, if we have one more for you. Budget committee,
That would be Dave.
Dave Walsh, that's a finance committee recommendation, capital recommendation, and that's a majority. And then the last two are by the Board of Assessors, so that'll be Solari. And they're also, these are the ones we do every year too, kind of like the.
Well, no, these are new ones.
Oh, these are new ones
This
to
is,
replace it.
this is the
Yeah,
HERO
this is the
Act.
HERO Act. It
Oh,
was
okay.
passed- Yeah, it was passed over last summer, so yeah, this
Okay.
is similar to the other ones.
The
that
ones we used to
but
do, the-
This is more specific to
Okay,
veterans.
to veterans, okay,
Yeah.
well, good, good. And those are majorities, they'll have Steve
Right.
Solari do those, so, and that's it.
Nice.
Unless anyone has any questions, it's pretty,
Yeah, why didn't we put the MBTA last?
so you could scoot out. Well, you should do.
I don't think it matters where it is, they're gonna be waiting.
Right,
we
but
can
the
get rid
idea
of
is we
everyone
may
else.
have more people still in the audience at that point.
Right.
If it fails, it fails, but we'll have more people voting on it.
Yep.
All right.
Well, it's one of those unique ones, you gotta figure out where to put it, because you're right, I mean, it failed last time for whatever reason, people voted, that's what we do it for. But some towns, I know, some towns place their articles a certain way,
There's
the towns that require quorums. Because they
15
know-
articles, I don't think it really.
No, I know, but
Yeah.
they know with
Sure.
quorums that people are gonna leave.
Oh, yeah,
and
100%,
someone calls it, they-
100%, yeah, we're not here to do
We
that.
could put this first, last, and you said give him ice cream, it's not gonna.
Yep, so I know, I agree. Any
Yep.
questions?
Nope.
Thank you.
Well, good luck with BOH.
Yeah, we're
Thank
good.
you.
I think we've done everything. Motion to go into executive.
We have,
Yeah, I'm sorry, but yeah, we need to go in. Hey, you got 12 minutes.
I apologize.
all right, I make a motion to close open meeting and enter executive session not to return to open session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21, to discuss personnel policy pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Council on Aging Director, Health Agent, Library Director, Building Commissioner, Zoning Enforcement Officer, Treasurer, Collector, Director of Assessing, IT Director, Town Accountant, Town Administrator. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, the chair so declares. Firefighters, superior officers, clerical, DPW, superior officers, patrol officers. Vote to close executive session and not return to open sessions. I, Carol Julius.
Hi, David Sheedy.
Hi, Peter Spigone.
We are adjourned. See you in 2 weeks.
Why is Superior
God
Officers
willing.
listed twice?